of three esteemed educators from pretty diverse backgrounds, which was the point. In fact, so diverse that they don't know each other, and we know how they don't know each other well. They probably heard of each other, but and in the Hawaiian education world, that's kind of wow, right? We usually know each other. And what I wanted to do with this panel was to sort of bring in some very realistic issues that we have in Hawaiian education, in our public schools, from our private school sector, and also from the university. We know as Hawaiians, we have lots of conversations on the couch, around the dinner table, about our perceptions, our opinions perhaps, about the educational systems that we have. And I really think it's important for us to bring those discussions and debates, even if you will, forward in our communities. So I would like to introduce our first panelist, starting at the left, J.R. Kawa'a. Aloha. Kaʻawa, hello. I know that. That's okay. Kalamai, J.R. Kaʻawa, who is the principal at the high school at Kamehameha, Maui campus. So let's welcome her. Hi. Our second panelist is Pulama Collier. And she is a kumu up at King Kekaulike High School, Kula Kaiapuni o Maui ma Kekaulike. And our last panelist is Miss Nālani Balutski, who works at the University of Hawaii, Mānoa, in the Native Hawaiian Student Services. So aloha. So the first question is really for you to introduce to us your educational background, personal and professional, as a way of sort of creating this foundation for the conversation we're going to have.
Aloha mai kākou. As mentioned, J.R. Kaʻawa, principal of Kamehameha Schools High School. It's so nice to see some of my haumana here, and thank you, Kahele, for having me here today. I'm from Molokaʻi, born and raised on Hoʻolehua, Homestead. I'm fourth generation homesteader. My parents are Edwin and Winona Kaʻawa. My father's side, the Kaʻawa side, is from Ka'u, and then made their way to Waihe'e and then on to Molokaʻi when Hawaiian Homes opened up in Hoʻolehua. My mother, the Kamakana side, is from Kawela on Molokaʻi. I'm the youngest of four daughters, and because of my birth order, I just kind of followed along with my older sisters. They all went to college on the continent, so I felt like I had to do the same. I went to a small junior college in Rexburg, Idaho, and when I was done there, I transferred down to Southern Utah University. And it wasn't until probably the ending of my junior year that I decided to go into education. Originally, my intent was to go into sports medicine. I was an athlete, and so it made sense for me to study sports medicine. However, when I took a couple of my classes, I really enjoyed education. And so when I got my undergraduate work in physical education and biology, and then decided to work on my master's in secondary education. While I was working on my master's, I applied for a teaching position in Cedar City District, county there. And it's just general application, and ironically, the first job I ever had was with Native Americans adjudicated juveniles. And so it was kind of interesting that that's where they chose to place me, but in hindsight, I think that was probably one of the best decisions that the district at that time made for me, because I was able to work with Paiutes youths and Navajo students who were struggling, who were displaced, and they came through my program, Youth in Custody program. I got them where they needed to be so they could be loosely used, the mainstream back into the high school there. And then I decided, my intent was always to move back home to Molokaʻi. I moved back home, I think, in '99, taught for a couple years, and then was asked to help with administration First year, I said no. Second year, they asked me again, can you please help us in administration, being our vice principal? I said no. By the third year, they asked me, I think they were desperate by then. So I had to say yes. And it's been a journey ever since. Then I moved over to Kamehameha. I never in my wildest dreams thought I would ever be working for Kamehameha schools. My mother is a 1963 graduate. They chose not to apply us to Kamehameha schools. We had plenty kuleana o Molokaʻi to take care of on the homestead, so it was never a thought. But it was kind of full circle for me to come back and then go back to her alma mater and try to do what I can to help our students there. I was a vice principal from 2005 all the way up to 2010, I think. Yeah, 10. And then that's when I became the po'okumu there. So, mahalo.
Mahalo.
How are you? Well, ano ay kawilinaw ki aloha ya kākou wāpau. Nā kupa o Hawaiʻi, nā mamo, aloha aina, nā keiki, nā kopuna, nā makua, nā kumu, nā kanaka o ke iau nei. Aloha mai kākou.
Aloha.
Owau no o Pulama Collier. My name is Pulama Collier, and I am Hekama o Maui. My lineage here, my lineage from both my parents are Maui Nui Akama, and I am the fifth child of 6, and I was one of the 4 that was not born on Maui. 2 was born here on Maui, the 2 oldest, and the rest of us were born on Kakuihewa, which is Oahu. So both my parents transferred to Oahu for work, and it is there that we were raised as a family, and as a Hawaiian family, and as a fishing family. I come from a very profound family, kind of entrenched in Hawaiian traditions, specifically for Kekaulike in our oceans. I come from a fishing family. And it's very interesting when you come from a fishing family and you live on Oahu. But I was very fortunate because at the time I was being raised, I won't let you know, I'll keep you guessing with that. It was still in Kailua, where I was raised. It was still a small town. And my father was still able to put out his nets and fish Kailua Bay. And go to Kipapa Island and fish there. Go through Kahana and fish there. Go around through Pu'uloa and fish there. Go out to Honolulu, out in the harbor there in Mamala, and fish there. My father was a pilot, so we flew when we were young in the air, but he was also a captain. So we holomokutu. So as a young child, not just myself, but my 4 brothers and my older sibling, Mikahala, we experienced a very wide range of ikena, visions. And that I thank my father for. Being very Hawaiian. His first language is Amanaleo. So my education is purely here in Hawaii, and I'm very proud of that. And education, not just school, but in life. I was schooled also only in Hawaii. I attended St. Francis High School, at the time a all-girls, Catholic, private, only nuns high school. Just recently found out that they are going to be closing their doors. And this is in Mānoa. If you come from Oahu and you're familiar with Oahu, it's a little school in Mānoa. And it kind of led a doorway open to my schooling at UH Mānoa. And I was there at the most exciting and interesting times that UH Mānoa, I believe, until this day has ever seen. It was right on the cusp of this burst of needing to know more and bring the intelligence of what we knew was now. That was in language, that was in Nā'auao, in the education and the knowledge that was necessary for us to continue and bring it forth to and shine light in the pohihihi, or in the darkness, or in the po'uliuli. I always felt myself a little like a muli. The people that were in the path, Ikela, Mamua o Mako, we were like the third generation of Hawaiian speakers, or Hawaiians to learn Hawaiian at UH Mānoa. Now we might think it was always available, that you can have Hawaiian language till 401 always available, and all of these sections always available. It was not. Even when I came in 1987. So it's not that very long ago that even the opportunities for language learning and culture learning, not even going to the point of using your culture, your language to educate, which is just strictly learning language, learning culture. If you are unable to learn that in your environment, in your home, that this was unavailable, it was very minute at that time. And the forerunners of that movement to bring it out, with Larry Kimura coming out and being the one to embrace ka leo Hawaiʻi and the leo o nā kupuna, these were very amazing times. And if I recall all my kumu, Kalani Maineki, as I do that, I recall them as my language teacher. My first one, Kalani Maineki Kaliko, and I were in his 101. Gee, that's when he had a lot of curly hair. Oh man, he used to wear jams. He used to wear jams and Bermudas.
Coming back.
Bring it back, buddy.
Coming back.
But those were our instructors: Kalani Maineki, Puakea, Rubalite Johnson, Kavena, Makalapua, No'ea Warner, absolutely. And so when we come into now, as an educator from me, after graduating from Mānoa, I didn't really know what to do with that. I was in that time, it was an exciting time, like I said. I mean, I am fortunate to be classmates with people who are Nāleo Ikaika, Nāleo Ivo'ole today in this time, not only in the culture movement, not only in the practice of what we're doing as Hawaiians, but also in the politics of it, in our language, in our revitalization of that, as well as our lifestyle and the reclamation of our land. So when I graduated the first time from Kula Mānoa, UH Mānoa, I really didn't know what to do with that. I was working for Bishop Museum at the time. My degrees are in archaeology and Hawaiian language. I was working for the Bishop Museum, and at the time I was working at Halava. And that also was a critical time. This was the H3 project, huge, huge. And working for Bishop Museum during the time of turmoil, when we're going into a valley where you literally take a step and you are uncovering and recovering ancient forms, values, people, things. But I don't like to say, artifacts, that seems so young, but you lift up a rock, oh wow, look at that ku'i'ai, pohaku ku'i'ai that we can use now. Oh, that's like 100 years old. Put that back. But really. So you're working in a valley that you take a step and everything is precious. And it's overwhelming to know that that's how it is all around us. It's right in front of us, it's everywhere. But I was able to be part of that and see that and lend and contribute. But following that, I was not intended, I had no intention of going into education at all. I was just going to be a little, Eli Lepo. I was just going to do my little thing in my banana patch and just uncover and recover these beautiful bits of history so that we can preserve them. Then I moved to Maui, back to my parents' aina, my grandparents' aina. I moved here actually to work in Ka'anapali Beach Hotel at a dig. I was supposed to They were doing some renovations and they needed archaeologists, so I came in for that. And then, of course, it was a time with the recession, and they canceled the job. And I said, well, okay, I'll go work at Luigi's. So some old folks who used to, from Maui, you know where Luigi's is, right? Yeah, I was the server there. I used to serve the pizza and the drinks and everything like that. It's a great place. My Bronco Francis. He used to sing his Elvis songs. Sorry, I'm tracking. But anyway, I started there, and it was from the request of my beloved sister, Mikahalahel, that asked me to come and give Kaiapuni and become a teacher and give Kaiapuni a try at Pa'ia's school. Le'ohu at the time, her youngest child, was in first grade, and they were looking for a teacher. I had already been familiar with it with No'eau, because No'eau, he was the #1 advocate and pusher. He was a pusher. He made us, right, yes, absolutely. Required courses in our classes for 401, 402, 301 actually, he was doing that to us. We had to go to Waiau, and we had to share Hawaiian mo'olelo with the haumana there, the keiki. So of course I had a familiarity with Kaiapuni, and even though I graduated with a degree that said I could speak Hawaiian proficiently, it was that time. So my sister had asked me so lovingly to go and check out Pa'ia's school, and if anybody knows my sister, you cannot say no to her. Even if you go, oh, all right. So I ended up going to Pa'ia's school. This is 1991. I had just graduated from UH Mānoa. And it was there that I met Lehua Vincent, Keiki Kawaiai'a, Malia Melemai, and prior to meeting Kahele, because we were the newbies, it was also Kahele. But I met these three amazing kumu, especially Keiki Kawaiai'a and Lehua Vincent, who had started the Kaʻawa Education on Hawaiʻi Moku. And when I sat across the table from the three, first they couldn't believe I was Mickey's sister. And once we got past that, they said, you need to teach here. And it was ha'alulu, but I knew it was true. So from then, from 1992, I replaced Keiki Kawaiai'a in first grade Pa'ia's school. And since that, my journey has continued all around the playground. I have been part of all the schools here, Kaʻaipuni, from Paia, Kalama, as well as Kekaulike. I taught at Pu'uhala Elementary in Kane'ohe on Oahu. I even taught at Castle High School, a public high school. Non-immersion, but definitely need to teach at a regular high school with all Hawaiians. In a public education high school, mean. I didn't even have a class, I had a wagon. No, really, I had a wagon. And I would get my wagon every morning and I would drive it and all my stuff would be in this little cart. Then I ended up also teaching at Kamehameha School summer program. During the time I was teaching at Pu'uhala Elementary. Eventually I finished my professional diploma to enable me to teach. I moved back to Maui, and I moved back to Maui after having 2 children who were in Punanaleo, one in Honolulu at the time, my little baby Lihau. I had just given birth to her, and we moved back to Maui in 1997 where I opened Kekaulike High School for the Kula Kaiapuni component there, Kula there. I was the first teacher there. Yeah, and I'm still there. I was also graced to work with on the administrative part. I taught in the classroom for about 4 years there. Once it was kahuaʻia, I went up and I taught with the state. I had the secondary program throughout the state of Hawaii for Kula Kaiapuni schools under a state office for about 8 years. And then I moved back I was still here on Maui, but then I moved back into the classroom about 5 years ago. And I'm blessed for every experience that I've had in education. I really feel like I'm kind of a holy person, meaning I've had a whole experience in different kinds of, in different environments, but all blessed because it's all Hawaii. And we have to know all the different ways and facets that we show and demonstrate ourselves as Hawaiians. And Oya Valeno. So I'm very happy to be here. My children, I have 3. Forgot to mention that. I have another one too. She's not here, but my daughter came. I don't know if she left yet. She said she was just going to see me and then leave. There she is. Lihau. But also to Ku'umauhoa, Ku'ohana, Ku'umauhoa aloha, hoa pili, hoa mau, e kupa'a nei ma keia ala ko'ele. Aloha mai a kākou apau. Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha mai kākou. My name is Nālani Balutski. I think maybe the presentation title should be shifted to educator and student because my response will be, yeah, totally, but me especially. So I'm from Ko'olaupoku, Oahu. My parents were very young when they had me. So both my parents are Hawaiian, but they, I think, were more concerned about making money and surviving as a young family. So I didn't. My first caretaker, my great-grandma, Mary Duvashell from Molokai, she spoke to me in Hawaiian, was basically my preschool for the first couple years, and then after that, I completely private school education. It's interesting, I've been kind of like digging into my family history, like education-wise, and I've noticed that since the overthrow, my dad's side of the family, everybody went private school. And so I'm almost like, oh, is that a research project of like, this like fleeing of the public school system? And they did not have the means to afford private school. So it's just another fun fact. But so I went to Catholic school, graduated from Kamehameha, and the time I would have been just eligible to do Hawaiian immersion, and my parents actually talk about the fight that used to ensue in the household about considering immersion for me back in the late 80s and or mid 80s, and my dad really wanted it, but they felt like they couldn't ho'oko the kuleana of what that meant, especially in those early years. So it's something that they think they still commiserate over. So it's interesting to reflect on, like, me now I work at the University of Hawaii today, and how much has changed in the last 15 to 20 years in terms of educational opportunities for our students. But kind of my own education journey is like right in the middle of that. So yeah, when I was a senior at Kamehameha, it was go away to America for school, and I did. I was going to be, my career goal was to be a CEO of some big company and make millions of dollars. And so I'm in school in California studying business, really not jiving with a lot of the things that I'm learning. And so for fun, I'm reading, and this is in California now, Southern California, I'm reading Haunani K. Trask and Lili Kala and John Osorio. So instead of applying for an MBA to do a master's in business, I find myself applying for a master's in Hawaiian studies, and I can't even really fully remember that time period. It's almost like somebody else was doing it, because I avoided the question of my family and friends of like, oh, okay, so where are you going for grad school? I didn't answer the question. And then I find myself sitting in the orientation at Kamakakuo Kalani. And I still don't know if I made this up in my head or what, but this is my memory that Lili Kala tells us to introduce ourselves. Go around the room, introduce ourselves. Who are you and why are you here? And I remember panic, because I couldn't even answer that myself, So somebody in front of me said, whatever his name was, and he said, I don't know why I'm here, but I know I have to be. And I remember just sobbing, just absolutely crying. And I was like, what he said, me too, ditto. And so that was in 2006. So I did the Master's in Hawaiian Studies program. I was working at Alulike, running the Hana Lima Scholarship Program. And then I've been at UH Manoa for the last 10 years, working at Manoa. I'm currently in a faculty specialist position for the School of Hawaiian Knowledge. I have an awesome boss, John Osorio. He lets me do what I want. Thanks, Kumu John. Yeah, totally. So that's kind of my journey now. I am a student as well. I'm a doctoral student in the College of Education in Ed Admin. My dissertation is looking at and tracking the genealogy of higher education in the 19th century Hawaiian Kingdom. You guys, we all hear the University of Hawaii talk about being a Hawaiian place of learning, right? And they never actually put real juice or resources or any kind of like dialogue of what that actually means. And so that's kind of the question that started with, for my dissertation project, thinking about most of their strategies is sprinkling of, we're going to put some signs, pilina, around the campus, and all of a sudden that's a Hawaiian place of learning. But so that's what it started with. But now I'm trying to put together like a building narrative of what did our ancestors create in the 19th century Hawaiian Kingdom towards a higher education system. What Willia and Idima talked about with Lili'u signing the act in 1893, that was a culmination of decades of our kingdom working towards creating a university for our country. And so that's something that I'm passionate about, and that's kind of how I find myself here, I guess, too. So, yeah, mahalo.
Mahalo. Okay, Nino Elua. What is Hawaiian education?
I'll jump in now.
Was on the list.
Okay, I'll try to start. I think for me, Hawaiian education, I mean, it looks different to everybody and in different places and where you come from. But for me, Hawaiian education actually started within my home. My first teachers were my parents and my grandmother in my home as well. And just ways of being within our own home, how things within the home are referenced, how they were placed, how you approached your day, how you engaged and interact with different people, how you interacted and engaged with our yard work, how we prepared our food. So for me, I think that was my first introduction to Hawaiian education. It wasn't necessarily academic, but I think it helped me understand who I was as a Hawaiian learner and my view of things and how I approached my own style of learning. And then, being young and being the youngest in my family, I was always, I was my grandma's punahele, so she took me wherever she went. And so at that time, you had Auntie Clara Ku and Auntie Harriet Ane still there, and she would take me to these gatherings, and I would watch. At that time, I didn't know what was going on, but just having I felt this presence of these strong Hawaiian women, and I didn't know at that time that I was being educated as well. But and then when I went to elementary, the only formal type of Hawaiian education we received in a predominantly Hawaiian school, 80%, well, at that time I think it's probably more because it was Kuala School, Hawaiian Homestead, and most of the children there were all Hawaiian. But was the kupuna program that they would come, the kupuna would come every Thursday, and we all learned to sing E Aloli Ke Kako, and we knew all these wonderful songs. And then the only other experience we had in elementary was Molokai is really big on makahiki, and so makahiki season, that was our form of Hawaiian education. And then when I went to high school, there was a huge disconnect for me because the literature that I was reading, the information, the content that was being presented to me, I didn't connect to it. However, it was in my junior year, we all had to choose world language class, and at that time there was no Hawaiian. You chose either Spanish or Japanese, and so all the homesteaders went and we took Spanish. And my teacher at that time was Mrs. Makahanaloa, Hawaiian lady, and Makahanaloa. And the way she approached her instruction and the way she handled all of these Hawaiian students in her class resonated with how I was first introduced to Hawaiian education, which was within my home. The beliefs, the value systems, how you approached learning, how everything in the class she was very meticulous about things. There was order, there was respect, there was love, there was aloha. And so for me, as far as my high school experience, that was my only connection to a Hawaiian education. I was learning Spanish, and I think Kumuikela has a similar story about her Spanish teacher. Was able to connect with me in a very Hawaiian way, and I believe that she activated things within us that, like intuition, that I think other teachers weren't able to, because intuition, and you activate your na'au, and in that process you hoʻonaʻauao, and that's where learning was happening for me and the other students in my class. So I think for me, in that sense, that was Hawaiian education to me. And like I mentioned earlier, I think it looks different for everyone depending on the resources and the sources that you are placed in. Just so happened in my experiences, that was where I was placed. So that was my connection to Hawaiian education.
Mahalo. We will follow the paina. We picked our seats on the train, so. What is Hawaiian education? Well, if we really look at it and we break it down, we are all just living in Hawaii. We're receiving a Hawaiian education because we live in Hawaii. So it's about where you put your focal point as far as how you define and refine and distinguish Hawaii and Hawaiian. For me, as far as education, it's pretty simple. Well, it's not simple. It's very complicated. But yet, Hawaiian education is when you are educated in a Hawaiian way. In the way you see, the way you move, the way you think, the way you feel. If you do that, and that's your center point, you do it in a Hawaiian way. Now we know we have different cities, different communities. So every way is a little different. But if it is that Hawaiian way of that community in that place, then you are being educated in a Hawaiian way. But there are many ways, and we see this in the development of different schooling environments. With just the beginning of Kaiapuni, that was like, whoa. You know, Kaiapuni came on the scene, and nobody knew what to do with that. And yes, we became a public school because not even the institutions that could kokua had no idea what the result and the outcome would be. So now that we see all these different options where we can educate ourselves and our children in a Hawaiian way in different contexts, because it is contextual. Everything is contextual, and is the way in which you move in that context that defines what that is, what that education is. So if you're moving in from the focal point of a Hawaiian way, and however it is, that to me is what Hawaiian education is. So, yeah, that's the question.
Mahalo.
When Kahele sent these questions last night, the first thing that came to mind was, you know, at KS they have those values on the wall. I don't know if they still do it, like laulima.
Yeah.
I don't know, ho'okele, kulia I kanu'u. So that was like the first, because I feel like, and I'm not the best metaphor person. I have a different kind of way of thinking about things. So I've always, like, I agree, all these values are very important, obviously, as a foundation. But I wanted to tackle this question a little differently with some of the things that I've been trying to pull out and answer this question in my dissertation. So a couple of things. I'd say first, Hawaiian education is inherently political. And I'm borrowing from some things that I'm learning about. Like, so one of the chapters of my dissertation is on the Hawaiian Youth Abroad program. Kalakaua started this, for lack of a better word right now, and time, study abroad program. Sent 18 Hawaiians between 1880 and 1892 to learn all kinds of different things, engineering and medicine all over the world. And it was, why I say inherently political is because it was very clear that the mission was for the benefit and support of our country and for governance here in Hawaii. There was no like going around the bush. It was like, no, this is about, and Willie said this earlier, that it wasn't even in the Department of Education, it was in Foreign Affairs. So I would say number one, Hawaiian education is inherently political, and we have a lot of examples of that. Even if you, one thing that we came across at Lahaina Luna archives the other couple weeks ago, we went and saw all these tests from Lahaina Luna in the 1880s, right? And I mean, you read like the kinds of things like juniors and sophomores at Lahaina Luna in 1880. They were there, and this is, I think it looked like their SSAT sort of, but created at Lahaina Luna. And they're asking things like, what is Article 3 of the Hawaiian Kingdom Constitution of 1864? And I mean, we're reading these things, we're like, I can't even answer any of this. This is like for the freshman and sophomore class. So anyway, I have a lot of examples, but I'd say that's number one. Hawaiian education is also about leadership development, inherently, about creating experts and the implication that you are going to serve your country. You're going to be a leader. This is what you got to get mākaukau for. So leadership development. Another thing that's this, because I'm in a program that studies higher education and studies universities around the world, mostly America though, is the focus. What you learn about the creation of the academy in America is, who does it get started for? White men and the clergy. So it's basically this elitist, higher education and college was for the elite. It wasn't for everybody. The fascinating thing of what happens in Hawaii is the exact opposite. I'm so glad Ilima brought up Ka'ahumanu earlier, because Lahaina Luna was our first school, and it was a teacher training college. It's not, it's not about just the ali'i. It was, we're going to train teachers. And where did those teachers go? They were immediately dispersed into the communities. And that's a huge reason why our literacy rate is nearly universal. And probably, I mean, if there was a literacy, expert that studied literacy rates around the world, I mean, it's incredible how quickly literacy is spread in these islands. But I would say it's because Hawaiian education that our leaders were putting energy and support into was democratic. It started from the bottom and worked its way up, not or just concerned about everybody. Another thing, sorry, I just thought of this thing about I was reminded of this newspaper article that I found like in the 1870s, I think, and people are talking about that our school systems our secondary school system is so good, basically universal literacy. Now we're ready for a college, and they were talking about it for a couple decades. And one of the newspaper articles is saying a nation without a university is an anomaly. So even talking about that effort to funnel resources and energy into the creation of a very complex ed system. I think that there's a lot more that you can say, but I'd say my contribution would be that Hawaiian education is inherently political. It's about leadership development, and it's democratic. It's concerned with everybody, and not necessarily, we should be thinking about everybody and not who we're leaving out, which, sometimes that's absent from the conversations today. Certain, from charter school to immersion and our private institutions, I don't know if we're, in any case, I think that that's really good conversations to have about, like, not just how we're defining it today, but how did our kupuna, because Hawaiian education has existed for 2,000 years. So we have been putting energy into this way before America showed up. So that's just one of the ways we can look at it.
Mahalo.
Can I add a little bit? Mahalo. Now we're going to see the difference in the generations, because you are you come from a time, and I'm not contending you right now. I'm just saying, to say education is inherently political is true. It's true in this time, in this context. But when we begin to deconstruct the purpose of education, especially as Hawaiians, and we begin to look at what is the function of why we learn. Because education is learning. We have to be able to really look at the true word of what education is. It is learning and instruction, how you are instructed, how you're learned. also everything else that goes with doing that. And again, what is the purpose and function? When we look at our culture, and then when you look back in time, it's very interesting because we have to be careful not to just meld it all in together. You know, we have different epochs of time in our history, Hawaiian history. I have different kind of labels for that. There's a classical time for me. These are terms that I have come to do in my research as far as how can I look at my own history and my kupuna's history with a pretty accurate lens and not be able to meld it on together, because significant events happened in our history that actually changed the purpose of our education. It changed it. It altered it. The removal of our spiritual base with the Battle of Kuamo'o prior to the missionaries coming changed our purpose of education and how we educated our children and our people. And then also with the coming of the missionaries and foreigners here to Hawaii changed the purpose. So for me, when we look at education, if you want to say, when you're in the classroom and you are creating a context that you want to say this is a Hawaiian context, a Hawaiian educating context, what are you actually going to teach? What are you going to transfer to your students? Are you going to transfer what's the real core of necessity for them to begin to move in Hawaiian ways? Because like I had said, Hawaiian education is educating or being educated in a Hawaiian way. If you olelo Hawaii and you learn how to Hawaii, that's a Hawaiian way. When you begin to see differently the world and you kind of look, it's like, wow, I've been looking at that in such a different way because that's how I was educated, and I went to a Catholic high school. Trust me, I have different things I have to get through. I'm a recovering Catholic. Still trying to get over that guilt.
So good.
But we have to we have to review, remember. What is the true essence of who we are as Hawaiians, especially when you begin to stand or sit in a role as educator. Because you can pass down, and it's true, you know, a teacher has a lot of power. I love that show, Lean on Me. Brother, got the stick, the big stick. But it's true, because when you're passing the knowledge to someone, your students, we sometimes don't realize what we actually are passing down. We think it's Hawaiian because maybe it might be, you know, I'm talking about Hawaiian history, facts, logistics, what's happening. Okay, I'm going to teach you about all of our kings now. See, I'm doing Hawaiian education. We have the Hawaiian monarchy book here. I'm doing Hawaiian education. That's part of it. But is that in a Hawaiian way? That to me is the essence. It's not just, you know, what is being said, what is being taught in the schools. It's how it's being taught. So when we look at the essence of things, so when we look at Hoʻonaʻauao or Nāʻauao, education is inherently survival. Survival. To ola. That is number one. To ola. And not just ola, like mokaki, just getting by, you know? No, to thrive. And that is why our culture approached the heights and peaked on the most amazing things a primitive culture could have achieved. In aquaculture, agriculture, horticulture, all preservation, conservation, beyond. And then eventually, literacy. So to me, education is inherently survival, but survival to be self-sustaining and ola. So the fervor for reading didn't come from Hawaiians saying, this is my own personal opinion, saying, I want to have a political voice in Hawaii. They wanted to know. Why did they want to know? Because they're going to make it knowing in their life to make their lives better, to make their existence better. Oia wale no. So as we do that as Hawaiians, like for me in our classroom, it's hard in this context because it is very political. That's why I'm saying it's not. But when we have to strip down and see what really, are we keeping it Hawaiian? Are we keeping it Hawaiian? Am I doing this in a Hawaiian way? Am I thinking this in a Hawaiian way? Am I seeing this in a Hawaiian way? And if you can say yes to that, then you are doing exactly what you need to do. But if you're not, always time. Hanaho, ho'oponopono. Oia wale, kalamai.
Mahalo. So the next question is, kind of playing off that. In your what is the state of Hawaiian education in the institution that you work?
Go ahead. That would be
Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Okay, so I think today, having Haumana here, who graduated from Kamehameha School, and seeing the value of being present for this kind of discussion is good for us, for me as a leader, to know that we're doing something right at Kamehameha. And I think the education that our students, our Haumana, are receiving today is very different from last year to 5 years ago to when my mother was at Kamehameha in 1963. There's been a huge shift from being a school for Hawaiians to being a Hawaiian school for Hawaiian students. And so with that, it's like trying to turn this big va'a, because there were a lot of faculty that were hired at whatever time in their career at Kamehameha that didn't go there with that understanding. And it's very, very apparent today that is the direction that we want to go and head towards. Even starting from our learner outcomes, and our learner outcomes is actually termed EOLA. And and I go back to cultural beliefs, understanding, and values being the foundation. And what we've done is try to identify these value sets that we can use to. Can you?
Go ahead.
Oh no!
You're trying to get us water.
Oh no! There's these value sets that we can use to map our curriculum. And I know that sounds real tedious, but that's something that we're trying to do. And starting with as simple as ike kupuna, and having our students gain an understanding of what ike kupuna is, and ancestral knowledge, insights, and achievements that our ancestors had, and them recognizing that it's seated in them to help direct their growth, and requiring Olelo Hawaii, our Hawaiian language, for all of our students minimally up into 2 years. When I first started at Kamehameha back in 2005, there was no requirement for any student to graduate from Kamehameha schools and take Hawaiian language. So I think we've made great progress with that, and understanding the importance that having Olelo Hawaii is a way to access a deeper understanding for your kupuna and all of their achievements, and also in a very academic way. And also looking at Aloha Aina, and this is something that Kumuekela and some of us talk about all the time, and the way that it's shared at Kamehameha schools is Aloha Aina, patriotism, and when we saw that, we're like, wow, but do we all have the same understanding of really what does that mean, and what does that look like for me? What does that look like for you? So again, sharing that, and the importance of building this relationship of where the love for the land, and the relationship you have with the land, and where you come from. So you can take care of it and exercise responsibility for it in your different communities, and then also kupono, making good decisions and decisions that benefit your lahui. And so actually starting for us at Kamehameha, starting with these foundational value sets and using that to then build your curriculum, and then hopefully we will see the outcomes in academic competencies, the way our students problem solve, the way they collaborate with others, and hopefully it'll also bring more innovative ideas and creative ideas. So kind of the reverse of my experience as a student growing up, where you learn all these things and then you sprinkle, Hawaiian values on it. What we're trying to do is quite the opposite, is starting with those cultural understandings and beliefs and value sets first, and then you deconstruct your curriculum from that. That's where you build your learning goals and your learning outcomes and your performance task and all of that kind of stuff. But that's kind of where we are at Kamehameha Schools. Our biggest challenge is realizing and honoring and respecting those who came to Kamehameha to teach at a different time and a different space than where we are today. And how do we walk them through this portal and support them to get to a place where they don't feel they need to be the experts of teaching, say, world history or teaching chemistry, and be an expert in Hawaiian language and Hawaiian culture, but actually have them be facilitators of our haumana's learning and giving them that kind of support. So our learners and our haumana can be responsible for their own learning. So that's kind of where we are at Kamehameha Schools. We have a long, long way to go, but I was just telling Kumu Ikela today that today at lunch, after I walked out of my office at 8:30 or so, there was only one flag on our campus, and it was our Hai Hawaiʻi. And I was so happy when I saw that. And so, 10 years ago, I don't think that would have happened. During lunchtime, a group of about 50 to 60 haumana did a march around our campus. And, in remembrance of the events of today and everything that happened in our history, I don't think that would have happened 10 plus years ago on campus. So, like I mentioned, we have a long ways to go, but these are steps in that direction, and that's kind of where we're at Kamehameha.
Mahalo.
All right, I'll give Kaiapuni a try. I've been a teacher in Kaiapuni now for 26 years. I have kind of, like I said, I've been around on the playground. So to kind of detail the different movements at Kaiapuni and the trends and the waves and the surf that Kaiapuni has gone through would be a whole year class here, actually. But so I'm going to kind of streamline and give you a snapshot of Maui, because this is where we are. Although I do this not in isolation, I share with you Maui's history and what I've seen as far as the evolution of Maui's Kaiapuni, the context of Kaiapuni here on Maui. This comes with connections to other Kaiapuni schools, and resources from Hawaii Moku all the way to Ni'ihau Kahelelani. So, and again, I don't want to talk of what Kaiapuni is like on Hawaii Island, nor on Oahu, Kauai, Molokai. Well, we can talk about Molokai because that's Maui Nui. But so I'll focus just on Maui and what I've seen and what I know. But just a reminder that it does come with with a breath of being connected to the other islands, because I've had that connection. And truly, the first waves of Kaiapuni and the first waves as far as how to educate, how to be a teacher in Kaiapuni came from Hawaii Moku. Hawaii Moku, with the ho'okahua, with the the establishment of Aha Punanaleo and Punanaleo schools, we came in as the continuance of those schools. So Kaiapuni did not just happen on its own. It was actually created, well, it was the continuance, the ho'omau of our Punanaleo, which is our preschools, private preschools, by the way. And I had mentioned earlier that Kaiapuni had, when brought, to the larger context as far as trying to get an immersion, a Hawaiian language immersion school established here in Hawaii, now we might think that that makes sense, common sense. But at the time, there was no common sense. And if you don't have common sense, you have nonsense. So basically, they had absolutely no idea what to do, where to go, who's going to take this. So it ended up, and there were different avenues. And yes, they went to Kamehameha schools to ask to take on Kaiapuni education. And at that time, that meant Eola Ka'olelo Hawaii. Speak Hawaiian in your classroom. That's immersion education. Okay? That's heavy. Because there's a lot of things, there's a lot of contingencies on saying that. Just speak Hawaiian in the classroom, and that's it. So I'm just gonna live that to you guys. I don't have to like clarify, but true. So there we're gonna Eola Ka'olelo Hawaii. So with that, to move it to a greater context, so then now it can become more on a availability public sector. It was brought forth to the state of Hawaii. And the state of Hawaii did take it. They did it with a bit hesitation because they didn't think it would survive. Straight up. They didn't think it would survive. Maui's immersion here began in 1989 with Punanaleo. Excuse me, with the first graduates from Punanaleo, yeah? And they started here on Maui and Paia. And at that time, Keiki Kawaiʻa came from Hawaii Island to be that first teacher, because there was no teacher here on Maui. There was no established school here yet. Hilo Hawaii Moku and Oahu were 2 years before us. So they were able to, they had kind of somewhat of a grip, but basically it's like Eola Ka'olelo Hawaii. So let's just take those readers, those Harrison and Ford, I can't remember those names, but the two English names, take those readers and let's just translate them and let's just tape over those books. That's talking about bears and talking about snowflakes and talking about little red wagons. But that's okay, because Eola Ka'olelo Hawaii, we want to get our Hawaiian language in the classroom. We need curriculum. This is a curriculum. This is the English curriculum. Let's just translate that. And I look back at that now as I don't see that with regret. I don't see that as being like, oh, we o tahupo, aole. That was our steps to in our journey. That was our steps to our way. Because that was where we were at the time. Nobody wasn't even thinking about creating Hawaiian books and stories in Hawaiian and printing it in Hawaiian. That was not even an available resource. So we have to go, I like Kaleko. Kaleko said this a long time. You cannot feed a baby steak. If you guys heard that, well, you heard it again, because that's so true. So at that time, we were infants. So we're just going, okay, let's just take all this curriculum from scholastic schools. Let's just put Okiatuko. We used to have a Okiatuko sessions, which means cut and glue, tuko. Okiatuko sessions, and we used to do that. We did that here on Maui in 1989, and we started doing that. Bought English books, put Hawaiian words to them, read them to our kids. It worked. It worked. But it worked, and it continued. More parents found interest in immersion. They were going, wow, you guys are doing Hawaiian. In the schools, you guys are speaking Hawaiian. Yes, we're reading, Run, Rabbit, Run, but that's okay. We're speaking it in Hawaiian. Okay. So we get a lot of attention on Maui. It's coming in. We're starting to grow. But what made immersion in that times, and Kahele and I came in 1992, relatively young. There was only 4th grade there. There was only 4th grade. We've graduated our 20th class. 19 years, yes. So at that time, it was just 4. But the reason it was so embraced, immersion was so embraced, and people found the value in immersion at that time was not just because the books were in Hawaiian. It was because they contributed, they wanted to be part, they wanted to connect to something greater, and that was the Lahui Hawaii. They wanted to connect to Lahui Hawaii. And their way to do it was through their children and Olelo Hawaii. So the goal was they had this love, and I'm going to say love, aloha, for Hawaii, that is what actually made them, this growth occurred. And the growth that occurred here on Maui came from the love of Hawaii, love for our kupuna, to ola, to ho'ola, and to that we still here. So their commitment to whatever it took to keep our schools going was beyond even a percentage. It was beyond. It went throughout their maoli. It was in and out of them. Every year, from the year it started in immersion, here on Maui, we had to legislate. We had to lobby to do another year. It wasn't just, okay, you guys start here, boom, you get all the way up to you graduate. Ole. I remember taking Kani'au, Le'ahi, Henohea to the district over here. They were in middle school at the time. I think they was in 4th grade. We did a couple of lobbies over there to ask to continue our schools so we can graduate students. So the caliber of the students and the families during those early times were so entrenched and so rooted in kupa'aina that it just was so beloved, and it moved. And here we have a makua. Her son Kavika graduated 04. I think you don't Kani'au guys, but so this is that beginning spark that just kept us going strong. The light is strong. So now everything else we're learning on the way. As Maui has evolved from those beginning times, we have grown. We're still in Paia school. We moved to Pulama. We moved to Kekaulike. This, in the past 3 years, we've expanded out to Lahaina. Well, actually, Lahaina was before, but we've expanded to Lahaina, and last couple years ago to Hana. Now we have Maui Hikina and Maui Komohana with immersion. Yet, there's still something that is changing. What I have seen in my many years and watching the different generations that's coming and the different contexts of how Hawaiian education is being used politically, I see it kind of in a very adverse way to our education in Kaiapuni. We have become so political that we now see our students there's something else within the classrooms that is not being passed forward, not being passed on. And I'll say it. The Hawaiian word for education is nāʻauao. Nāʻauao. To enlighten, to bring to light, nāʻau. We all know there's, it's actually right in there, is your nāʻau. But your nāʻau are the different pathways. You see, nāʻau, it is the pathways of which even your na'au, because if you look in the internals, the innards of who we are, there's au in there, right? There's au. So to the ways in which we bring light, we bring ola, light, because life is light, light is life. When we bring those ways in through our na'au, we are learned. We're learned. We're pono. But what's happening now is we're kind of missing out a little bit now. We're so focused on the au. Who's got the most beaming light, who's lit, who's the one that's going to have the most brightest star, whatever like that. We're kind of forgetting a little bit about the na'au. The sensing, the senses, the na'au. You want to put that into feeling? Yes. You want to put that into intuition? Yes. You want to put it into what really brings happiness and joy, oli, aloha. Your na'au will tell you. If you're supposed to be someplace, your na'au will tell you. If you're not, your na'au will tell you that as well. So are we, as doing Hawaiian things in a Hawaiian way, following our na'au as well when we educate and when we learn? And na'auao. So right now in immersion, our context in Maui, we still have our different schools. We're actually, we kind of follow a different path with the other islands because we are still, we're the only island actually that doesn't have our own individual, not isolated, but our autonomous site. We are all little schools and bigger schools. Kekaulike, prime example. We have 55 students in a population of 1,200. So to maintain the na'au, to maintain the olelo, to maintain the no'ono'o with these 55 students every day is difficult, to say the least. And without that na'au kupa'a, that, for example, our earlier generations have, we see a wavering of our students. That they are so overwhelmed from the au ea'e that even keeping them speaking olelo every day is pa'akiki. Constantly reminding them to olelo Hawaiʻi. Constantly reminding them, or in fact, sometimes not even reminding them, actually bringing up, showing them that they don't see it in a Hawaiian way. You have to educate them. They're saying things that isn't in a Hawaiian way. But just because they're in immersion, they think they're Hawaiian. I'm doing it in a Hawaiian way, in immersion. No. A'ole. So that's the reality, because our larger environment, our macro environment, is so overwhelming for our students, especially with social media, especially with the boom of our Kelapona and technology. Olelo Hawaiʻi, whereas I used to look at my students before and I just give them an eye, don't speak Hawaiian for me. Speak it for you, but greater than you, because it's not about you, speak it for your lahui. And so again, connecting to that na'au. So that's where I always have to go. And it's hard, because the teachers that are coming in now have to have that security and have that na'au in them. I was just sitting with a beautiful indigenous educator. She's of the Hopi tribe. And she's a professor at UCLA. And when she shared her experiences in trying to, immersion for them is an impossibility, because their language is so segregated and their population of the younger generation is so diverse and dispersed throughout They don't have the kahua that we actually have. So in Kaʻaipuni, we're very blessed, really, especially with our literature, really amazing. But for them, their number one means as far as their indigenous education, now we're going to have to move it to the larger. Let's get off from just Hawaiian education. Let's just look at indigenous education. Their main goal is to formulate identity. Formulate identity. That they relate and they identify with their culture, Hopi. So here it is, immersion. Does that ring through with us in immersion? Yes, I say yes. So the teachers that are coming in now, they cannot be wavering with their identity as far as who they are. They have to be confident in it so that our students, so that they can get the punches, because they're going to get punches from the students that are trying to develop their identity. So the educators, if you are desiring to be an immersion teacher, I'm going to be your number one fan, supporter. But go in confident and bring your identity because you want to know exactly what you're passing down. And if you're not always pono, that's what's going to pass forward. Aloha. Aloha kua, aloha aina, aloha kanaka. Sorry, I feel like I was in church right there.
The state of Hawaiian education in our institution. So, University of Hawaii, 10 campuses, right? There's about 50-something thousand students across the 10 campuses, of which about 10,000 are Hawaiian students. So we represent 20% of the student body across the system. I think that's important for us to keep a temperature check on that because, I mean, that's huge from even 10 years ago. I think it's about double than what it was 10 years ago. The numbers don't just barely tell the story, though. So at UH Manoa, there's about 2,600 Hawaiian students on our campus out of about 18,000. So we're 15 to 18% of the student body. Again, that's double than what we were 10 years ago. So those kind of things are good to, I mean, even we're trying to track like how many are in grad school, what majors are they in. But I kind of also wanted to, another thing that we're trying to do at Native Hawaiian Student Services is trying to document like the history of UH Manoa. So, we shared with you about Lili'u signing the bill that creates the entity that becomes the University of Hawaii, which is super awesome, but I don't think that we're ready to quite say that means we're a Hawaiian institution because when the doors opened in 1907 for quite some time, it was very not intentional about, it was not that this was a place for Hawaiians. That's what the presidents and chancellors said for a long time, but we also want to tell the story of like the first two Hawaiian faculty at UH Manoa. Fred Beckley, who is Emma Nakuina's son. And interesting stories about like the Beckley Ohana after the overthrow. They get dispossessed of a lot of their lands in Manoa that actually contributes to some of the land that UH Manoa sits on today. And then he becomes one of the first Hawaiian faculty to teach at the institution that stole family lands to create it. So Fred Beckley, and he's born in the kingdom and then goes through the other first Hawaiian faculty is John Henry Wise, also educated in the kingdom, and then both Fred Beckley and John Henry Wise actually have careers as politicians at first, trying to run for government and then find their way. I think they both had some role to play in some of our Hawaiian churches at the turn of the century, and then found themselves as educators, to want to play a part there. So fascinating stories, and we're trying to bring those kind of stories out so that our students today at Manoa, when I first went to college, I'm the first in my family to go to college, and I used to always say that. I would always introduce myself in that way because that's what everybody else did, and it was this weird thing. I just used to say, "Oh, I'm the first in my family to go to college," and now. Native Hawaiian Student Services has one of our student learning outcomes says that we want Hawaiian students today to realize that they're part of a very long genealogy of intellectual excellence. So it restarts the clock, yeah? So perhaps I'm the first to go to a university that looks like that, but my ancestors have been, you know what I mean, experts in all of these things since time immemorial. So the stories of John Henry Wise and Fred Beckley and all of this help to tell that story, that we're not the first on this campus or campuses that have been trying to transform it, give it life, and try to change the way it operates. Because I think structurally, though, these places are not, unlike, you know, Kaiapuni and KS, when UH opens, it's not meant to, just the way it's organized, student affairs, academic affairs, and where financial aid is, nothing works, you know, it doesn't work. But that's different than, so back to, you know, keeping a temperature check, even in the last 10 years, it's incredible how much has changed at Manoa. So we have 110 Hawaiian faculty on campus. And I'd say at least half or a third have been hired in the last 5 years. It's these young scholars that are they showed the picture earlier in the other panel. Noah Lincoln, who's from Maui, right? So he's a soil scientist, but he's talking about and teaching about the Kahiki Nui and Kohala field systems, you know, and applying those kinds of, that's what he's bringing into the classroom. But we didn't have that even, 10 years ago. So it is super exciting, but there's so much work to do because we're still 1% of the administration. And sometimes I feel like it's even more dangerous these days when you hear all the things about Hawaiian place of learning and there's no accountability on the part of the university to actually do something about that. Most of our programs, like the ones that the Kekaulike project that we run with you guys at UH Maui, most Hawaiian programs are federally or just extramurally funded. I would say at least 80% across the UH system, at least. So these are Hawaiian, and even the 110 faculty that I talked about, a lot of them are temporary. They're not tenure track, and then they're in departments where, you know, if Kiana Frank is here working with a community organization, sometimes her department will say, oh, you know, well, that's not research. So there's just so many things to do, but at the same time, we have a lot of super passionate people that are there and wanting to make a difference. And then I feel that because we're just kind of taking over in all these disciplines, we're almost at that, what do you call that? When you reach a
Climax.
Yeah, and it just pushes over. It kind of feels like that on some days. It's just an exciting time. Even, you know, the kinds of things that we talk about here in community settings. There's Hawaiians doing dissertations about it at UH Manoa, or, you know, so it's a fun place to be. But it's super challenging. But I think sometimes the challenge also makes it exciting too. So yeah, far way to go, but we're getting there.
Okay, mahalo. Mahalo nui. So we're a little bit short on time, so I think we're going to go to questions. If anybody in the audience has questions for this panel or anybody on this panel. Nino?
Come on. Come on. Dig it out. Dig it out. Hey. Wow.
Gotta ask a question. Mahalo ia oko paka ia pau no ka hoʻopuka ana I ko mau mana'o maikaʻi loa I keia la kaumahana hoʻi. No laila, how do your three institutions work together? Kamehameha Schools, Kaiapuni, and the University of Hawaii system.
That's my kaʻi.
That's a dissertation.
Yes, it is. I can share that. Yeah.
Keia la.
I'll be quick. I'll be brief. One thing about immersion is that it really, you know, we do have a sense of autonomy in our schools that it really depends. It's all about the people of that school, and the relationships that they have. Oia vale. So as far as Kaiapuni here, well, for Kekaulike, the relationship that I have with, actually, we do have a relationship with both institutions. And mahalo for Hokuā, mahalo for having our faculty at your school a couple of weeks ago. And we had our little waiver day, but that's more on the, and Brandy setting that up, Carvalho, but that's more on the public school side, but specifically immersion. We have connected and we have a strong relationship with Kamehameha ʻAʻapueo because of the relationships and the friendships that I have with Ikela, with O'oi, and all the different kumu that are still there, and that we, because of those friendships, we were able to work together. It's friendships. Beyond just, oh, I know you. It's truly friendships, coming in and just looking at what is important. We want our kids to experience. You have resources. We're sharing. It's sharing as friends and as family. Same with the UH system. With Kekaulike, having Kahele come and teach. We finally got that in as a pilot program, but I think, you know, out of pilot, we're kind of moving in the really good waters here. But for 3 years, having our seniors take 201 and 202, and by the time they leave, they're getting college credit. How many? 16. Oh, 16 credits already, as soon as they graduate from Kekaulike. And that's specifically for immersion Kaiapuni. So we do have relationships, especially from Kekaulike, and it's based on friendships and sharing. Yeah.
Mahalo.
Aloha. I'm not an educator. And so a lot of people look towards the educators to enlighten us to reach that truth. As I guess what Hokuʻau, I want to kind of piggyback on that, because if we cannot find that unity with the individual components that you hold, how do our people then connect? Can there be like a common thread that no matter from what sector you're coming from, we can still have this commonality and common ground like ʻOnipaʻa, so that we can find that unification to achieve that truth that we're all looking for in some way, some fashion. Like I said, I'm not of the academia. I'm more of the now. Yeah. I move with the spirit. And that's an education within itself. But how can we find that commonality so that we can then reach out, or it can be the example, the beacon, so those from outside looking in can now unify and then reach that ultimate goal of truth.
I think what we need to do is start to talk more about the relationships that we have, the successes, the achievements that we have, because if we don't collectively talk about it, then they'll only know about the things that we're not doing and the things that we haven't yet accomplished. So I think bringing awareness and sharing and communicating with our lahui, our community, about the relationships that we have, and bringing awareness to all of the good things that are happening, and shift those conversations from our deficiencies and what they see in the news and what they hear about Hawaiians, out there, to actually what really is happening and all of the accomplishments and the achievements that our people are making. So I think it starts with bringing awareness and calling things out. People don't really know that there are relationships and pilina that already exist, and bringing awareness to that so people can recognize that and want to be a part of it.
I'll give you guys a little bit of Ike on what's happening on the state level in public school education, because even on the public education sector from K through 12, we have gone through a I don't want to say a reformation, but our position as far as Hawaiian Education and the Office of Hawaiian Education has been elevated to an office. So what we're seeing now in the past 5 years, this was something when I was at the office, was a hope, a goal that we possibly could have a greater standing rather than being under the Office of Instructional Services and a special program. We have now restructured our to become an office, first of all, which is called OHE. And so the relationships within the public education, the public schools now are being strengthened, and they're being strengthened with the fuel of Hawaiian or Hawaiian education, if you want to put it. Whereas we're seeing initiatives, they're coming into schools with with breath, and so they're normalizing Hawaiian language, Hawaiian education, Hawaiian culture within every single public education classroom throughout Hawaii. That's phenomenal. That's a huge step. So even within the public education sector, they have to kind of, we're as far as Hawaiian education is concerned, we're beginning to kind of proliferate through and making even Hawaiian culture learning, Hawaiian language, place-based learning, these kinds of things that we have come to do normal. I mean, have to do, need to do. That's what we know as must. That's a must do. They are now being open to it, and schools, regular schools. And it's amazing. We have, for example, our schools on Maui, we are schools within schools. So you can actually have, even in Paia, it's happening, it's happened, and it's still happening. You have Kaiapuni running this way, and you have the public Paia school that is totally, their own children aren't learning their culture. They're not learning, they don't have any opportunity to learn language, nor do they have an opportunity to really know their place, have any kind of place-based education going down within the classrooms. Their teachers aren't required to do it. But now with this kind of restructuring of Hawaiian education in the public school system, we're finding that they are being held accountable. Every single teacher, every single classroom is being held accountable for Hawaiian culture learning, Hawaiian language learning, and Hawaiian na'au learning with Ha. So that's huge. So that's a point to where, it's not just we got to go here, how can we make it? The state itself is trying to influence and make all classrooms, aware of the value of our culture and language.
Mahalo.
So a couple of things. Thank you for I like the comment as far as identity. It's something that we in our generation were never, coming too late, I should say. And those coming now have a jump start on what is. But I think the comment of who that or what that identity has and the responsibility of teaching it correctly, I think is very important, because I agree to the point of the political part as far as education. But again, as Jocelyn mentioned, and you mentioned in your talk, the part about the spirituality. And I think it's a very important component. It talks a lot about who we are as a people, and you talk about the Hopi and how they're trying to find themselves. It is very important for us to understand what type of people we are, how our people think and operate, because it was a beautiful country. It was a beautiful concept, and they were beautiful people, and we are beautiful people. And so I very much admire what you guys bring today. So the question is, how do you do that? To implement that for the children?
That sounds like it was
Oh, does that sound like a me question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yes. You know, when you, and you know, when you just put it straight out, like, how do you do that? You know, I'm not at loss for words, but I find myself feeling that every single day when I open my doors and those kids chant to come in. And it changes. It changes because it is being completely aware of what is that moment where you see a haka. You see something that's not pono, or something's not right, or even in the simplest of, for example, language. If they say something that, okay, they use an English word, this is the Hawaiian word for it. Have them repeat it. Like, it has to be instant. So, and you have to know, for example, when you have a student that kind of makes either a comment or says kind of is a certain way that is really like, whoa, but you know what you're saying? I mean, you can see deeper from their words. See, I don't know if you guys are getting from what I'm saying. You know, it's a person, by saying something, by their saying that, they're not just saying it on a certain level. They're actually showing a little bit of who they are. And that's what we're getting to, right? The point. Who they are and what they believe and how they see those things. And so what they say is showing you. So it's like, whoa. So when I have students that say certain things, do certain stuff, and I see that is the time that you offer for them, because it's an offer. They're either going to take it or they're not. You offer that way, which you know is Hawaiian. That's all. That's all we can do. Now, either whether they choose it or they're not, that's their choice. But they do that because they've never been afforded, or they've never been offered to see it in a Hawaiian way, or to even speak it in a Hawaiian way. Or if they have been, they really didn't take it in, so they don't have the practice of it. Because to master something, you have to practice it. And it's simple, like even language. To say you can use Hawaiian words, but you're not saying a Hawaiian sentence. He aha keia mea no. Right? We all laughing. We all know, we hear that. He aha keia mea no. What is this thing for? That is completely an English grammatical sentence. What? All Hawaiian words. So, is that Hawaiian? Is that Hawaiian language? It is Hawaiian language because it's using Hawaiian words. But is that a Hawaiian expression? No. It's Hawaiian words, it's Hawaiian language. It's not a Hawaiian expression. That's not how a Hawaiian would express themselves, ever. Because it's not coming from a Hawaiian way of seeing the world, or even knowing their language. So we offer that. So when something like that comes in, the identity, like I say, who they are, you speak in the words, but you say in Hawaiian words, but you're not speaking Hawaiian. So at that point, we don't judge it. We just correct it. We correct it again. We move on. We don't judge it. And that's usually how things improve. And then they begin to narrow their focus, and they begin to really know and become confident in themselves and their olelo. From their olelo comes into their na'au. Me, I'm a na'auer. I go straight into the na'au, everything else going ho'opuka. And that usually gets it in. But it is by modeling. It is by you having that confidence, you knowing yourself, you knowing who you are, that they will be able to then formulate for themselves who they are. And if Hawaii is their identity, if Hawaiian is their identity, it's not the only identity. Thank you very much, because I'm Puerto Rican. I rock that too, and I'm Chinese. You know, but if Hawaiian is the identity in which you are going to choose, then make sure you're choosing it in a Hawaiian way, in a Pono way. Me ke aloha wale no. Yeah.
Mahalo. So mahalo. Let's thank our panel for this awesome time together. And I'm actually going to quote a student that was in our on the first panel when she said, one of the things she thinks needs to happen is for us as a lahui is to embrace our diversity.
Yes.
And I think that when we look at this panel, wow, diverse.
Very.
And how wonderful that is to be this diverse. So mahalo nui, you guys.
Mahalo. Thank you, Nate.
Yeah.